What's up, fam? It's your girl Ike here. Just wanted to talk to y'all about a couple things. I've been racking my brain for solutions because we all can identify a myriad of problems that have led us to this place, whether they be historically or present day problems. We can identify all the problems, but we don't have solutions. And I was thinking, I was in court today. I didn't have this on. I changed clothes after court. But when I was in court today, I had a client and she pled guilty, and they assessed a fee for a mandatory surcharge. And I started thinking, now I've always been opposed to these mandatory surcharges because I really didn't understand where the fuck this money was going. And so every time somebody pleads guilty, there is a surcharge, a fee that they have to pay. Now, even if you are sentenced to state prison, you're still required to pay the mandatory fee. Right. And so you should be thinking, like, how the fuck are you going to pay a fee if you in jail? Oh, you could work in jail for like 15 cents an hour, 25 cents an hour, or whatever it is. And then you can't accumulate any commissary because whatever you owe on those fees is going to be taken from any money that your family deposits in the commissary or that you might make in the jail, right? And you might be thinking, how is this legal, right? That should violate some type of labor law, but it doesn't. And you know why? Because of the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment, which was like, the biggest hoodwink of them all. You all sitting around thinking you're free because of the 13th Amendment, right? Because it said it abolished slavery. I need you all to do your work, do your homework, Google the 13th Amendment and read the language in it. And pay particular attention to the exceptions. And some of y'all don't even know that there's an exception. There's an exception in the 13th Amendment. It says that slavery and indentured servitude will be abolished in the state of New York unless there's the exception, unless you're convicted of a crime. And you know what's crazy about the 13th Amendment? It doesn't say what kind of crime. It just says a crime. It could be any crime. And if you are convicted of any crime, a crime, then you are then subject to slavery and indentured servitude. And that's exactly what's happening in our jails. So when you ask the question about mass incarceration, right, and we want to think about how we can reduce the prison population, you have to really think, like, who is going to, spite themselves? Because it's a billion-dollar industry, right? They are getting free labor for profit because they're not making not-for-profit shit, right? These are companies that are selling goods and services both nationally and internationally from prison labor, right? So you've got that problem. You also have the problem with the surcharges for people who can't pay. Right? So say you don't have family members who are going to put money in your commissary, or you don't have, you can't get a job at the jail. They will then enter a judgment against you for that fee. Yeah, that's right. So you're going to come out of prison with a civil judgment on your credit report, right? So now you can't get a job because you were a convicted felon, and you can't get a job because you got fucked up credit. And so there's the vicious cycle, right? Because now that you can't get a job in the primary labor market, you are going to start looking in the secondary labor market, right? And when we talk about secondary labor market, traditionally we're speaking of those markets that people engage in boosting, selling drugs, running numbers, or any credit card scamming, anything like that, right? That will bring you income. That's the secondary labor market. And so we've got that problem. So I'm calling for an amendment to the 13th Amendment because we need to remove the exception. There should never be an exception where slavery or indentured servitude is allowed or permitted or encouraged. It's just ridiculous, right? So we need to start there. That's one of the things we have to do, because once we do that, then we can say that these wages that you're paying these individuals in prison is against the law. It violates the Fair Labor Standards Act or something like that, right? We can go somewhere else with that. And then mass incarceration is no longer a billion-dollar industry, right? Because it's all about money. This is not about punishing anyone. It's not about retribution. None of that shit. All of that is pretense. All of it is pretense. It's pretextual, right? Because nobody is going to prison, which is the fucking zoo, to be rehabilitated. Everybody I know who's ever gone to prison came out a better criminal, right? Because in prison, it's just a microcosm of the world. It's the same shit going on in prison. There's drugs, there's gangs, there's weapons, all of that. So you're not getting rehabilitated, not in that environment. All right. So we've got to move on this on multiple levels, right? We've got to move on multiple levels, not just economic resistance, but we've got to bring change legislatively, and we've got to push for the change from the back end, right? Because we need to make us not the commodity anymore. Our black bodies can't be the commodity anymore. And mass incarceration is the same as slavery in that we are the commodity. So we need that change. We need that change right away. Okay? I don't care who the president is going to be, right? We're either going to get a crook or we're going to get a possible rapist, one or the other. I don't care which one of them is in there, but somebody needs to address the 13th Amendment. All right? If you're not familiar with it, look it up, read it for yourself, appreciate the exceptions. And then ask yourself, why would anybody ever carve out an exception for slavery? What kind of madness is that? Ike speaks. I love you. I really do.